I never thought my quiet little house in the suburbs would turn into a battlefield. I thought the war part of my life was behind me, buried in the sand, locked away in memories I refused to revisit. But sometimes, war doesn't come at you with bullets or bombs. Sometimes, it comes with paperwork, petty tyrants, and a spray can. My name is Jack Dalton. I used to handle dogs who could find a bomb in a sandstorm, dogs that sniffed out danger before any human eye or ear could catch it. I've walked through cities where the air itself felt hostile, where one wrong step meant your name would be carved into stone. And yet, here in Greenfield Meadows, this neatly trimmed, cookie-cutter suburban paradise, the fight I was about to face would test me in ways even combat hadn't. And at the center of it all was Teddy, my golden retriever, my partner, my service dog. Now, Teddy isn't just a pet. He isn't some family ornament you toss a ball to when you're bored. He's the only reason I can stand on my porch without my knees buckling. He's the weight against my leg when my lungs forget how to pull in air. He's the tether that yanks me back when the shadows in my head get too loud. His mission isn't bombs anymore. His mission is me. And in my book, that makes him the bravest soldier I've ever known. We had a routine. Morning walks at dawn, when the sprinklers hissed across the manicured lawns, and the air smelled faintly of wet grass and fertilizer. It was my slice of peace. The kind of peace I thought I'd earned after years of chaos. But peace, I learned, is fragile. Especially when it's guarded by someone like Karen Jordan. If you've never met an HOA president, count yourself lucky. But if you have, then you know the type. The neighborhood dictator. The self-appointed queen of conformity. The kind of person who measures your grass with a ruler and counts the cracks in your driveway like they're mortal sins. Karen Jordan wasn't just the HOA president of Greenfield Meadows. She was Greenfield Meadows. Beige siding was her crown jewel. Lawn height was her battlefield. And her smile, when she bothered to wear it, was a blade hidden in velvet. Every neighbor lived under her unblinking eye, and every decision went through her iron fist. And me? I was her favorite target. Not because of the paint on my house or the weeds in my flower bed, but because of Teddy. Because of one bark. That morning started like any other. Teddy trotted by my side, tail swaying, nose buried in Mrs. Gable's roses. He was calm. I was calm. Then, in an instant, calm shattered. A delivery truck backfired down the street. A loud, sharp crack. Not unlike the sound of a rifle. My chest went tight. My shoulders locked. My breath froze. And Teddy, God bless him, did what he's trained to do. He barked once. Just once. A sharp warning. His way of saying, I've got you, boss. Stand tall. Then he pressed his shoulder into my knee, deep pressure grounding me, anchoring me back to earth. That one bark saved me. But to Karen Jordan, it was ammunition. Her front door burst open like a general storming onto the battlefield. She strutted onto her lawn in her pink floral top and her sun visor, eyes narrowed like gun sights. Jack Dalton, she barked, her voice slicing through the air like broken glass. You cannot control that animal. I stood there, steadying my breath the way they drilled into us, inhale, hold, exhale. Calm. Collected. He's a service dog, Karen, I said evenly. He was startled. But Karen didn't hear words. She heard weakness. And weakness was blood in the water. He is a menace, she declared, loud enough for the empty street to hear. A threat to the peace of this community. It was a lie. Teddy was quieter than half the yappy purse dogs in this neighborhood. He barked maybe twice a week, always when I needed grounding. But in Karen's eyes, truth bent to her will. And in that moment, I knew what I was up against wasn't just a woman with too much time on her hands. It was a tyrant who needed control, and I had just given her the excuse she'd been waiting for. I tugged Teddy's leash gently. We're leaving. But Karen wasn't done. Not with neighbors watching. Not with her stage set. She raised her voice, weaving a performance out of thin air. She made Teddy out to be a wild beast, lunging and foaming. She painted me as reckless, irresponsible, a danger to Greenfield Meadows. And right on cue, the cavalry arrived, a patrol car rolling slow down the street, its tires whispering against the pavement. 2 officers. Miller and Sanchez. I knew them. Everyone knew them. They were good men, tired men, who just wanted their shifts to pass without paperwork. Karen waved them down, feigning relief. Officers. Thank heavens you're here. And with that, the battlefield shifted. She accused Teddy of lunging at her, claimed she feared for her safety. I stood there, silent, letting the leash slack in my hand. Teddy sat obediently at my leg, his eyes confused, tail thumping slowly. What did I do wrong, Dad? His gaze seemed to say. The officers didn't want this. Their faces said it all. This was the kind of neighborhood drama they dreaded, loud voices, petty grievances, a mountain of paperwork. But before they could defuse it, Karen made her move. While their eyes were elsewhere, she pulled a small canister from her pocket. It looked harmless. Like hairspray. But when she pressed that nozzle, a mist shot straight into Teddy's face. He yelped, a sound I'll never forget. Pain, confusion, betrayal. He pawed frantically at his eyes, stumbling back, whining in a pitch that cut me deeper than any bullet ever could. And in that moment, I knew, this wasn't just neighborly hostility. This was war. The second that spray hit Teddy's face, the world slowed. His golden coat shimmered in the mist, then darkened as the chemical soaked in. His eyes snapped shut. His paws clawed desperately at the air, at his muzzle, at me. He whimpered, then howled, the kind of sound that rips your chest wide open and leaves you raw. I dropped to my knees. Teddy. My hands went to his face, trying to wipe away the poison with my sleeve. His fur reeked of ammonia, sharp and sour, the kind of smell that stings your nose and makes your eyes water. I pulled his ears back, whispering, "It's okay, buddy, I've got you. Stay with me." The officers froze. Their jaws clenched. They saw it. They knew what Karen had done. But they didn't move. Not fast enough. Karen, meanwhile, played her part like a Broadway actress. She stumbled back, clutching her chest as if she'd narrowly survived a mauling. Her visor tilted on her head, her face the picture of panic. "Did you see that?" she cried. "That beast tried to attack me. I was forced to defend myself." Lies. Every word. But lies have a way of spreading faster than truth. Especially when shouted loudly enough. Officer Miller stepped forward, his hand hovering near his belt, not his gun, thank God, but his radio. His voice was measured, too measured. "Ma'am, step back. Sir, control your animal." My blood boiled. Teddy was crumpled on the ground, wheezing, his chest heaving. His crime was one bark. One bark. And this woman had just burned his eyes with God knows what, and now she was painting him as the aggressor. But I knew better than to lash out. One wrong move, one raised voice, and I'd be the one in cuffs. So I swallowed the rage, pressed my hand to Teddy's chest, and whispered the same words I'd used overseas when my brothers were hit, "Stay with me. Stay alive." Sanchez crouched, finally snapping out of it. "What the hell did you spray him with?" Karen raised the canister defensively. "Peppermint oil. Perfectly legal. I carry it to protect myself from vicious animals." Peppermint oil. Sure. I knew military-grade irritant when I smelled it. The officers exchanged glances. Miller sighed and reached for his radio. And then, like a guillotine falling, the words came. "We'll need to file an incident report. Standard procedure. The animal will have to be quarantined." Quarantined. The word hit me like a slug to the chest. For a dog like Teddy, quarantine wasn't just a cage. It was a death sentence. The city kennels were cold, sterile, filled with fear. Service dogs aren't meant to be ripped from their handlers. It breaks them. And if Karen had her way, Teddy wouldn't just be quarantined, he'd be labeled dangerous. Put on a list. Branded for life. I stood, my fists trembling at my sides. He didn't bite her. He didn't lunge. You both saw. Karen cut me off with a shriek, pointing at her leg. "Look! He bit me right here." The officer's eyes dropped to her ankle. Bare skin. Smooth. Untouched. But Karen was prepared. She dragged her fingernails across the side of her calf, hard, until angry red welts rose. Then she held it up like evidence. "See? Teeth marks." I couldn't believe it. I'd seen insurgents fake injuries to frame U.S. troops. I'd seen men cut themselves to spin propaganda. And here, in the middle of American suburbia, an HOA president was pulling the same stunt. Miller and Sanchez weren't buying it entirely, but procedure was procedure. "Ma'am, we'll take your statement. Sir, animal control will be in touch within 24 hours. Until then, keep the dog restrained." Restrained. Quarantined. Investigated. Karen smiled then. A slow, venomous curl of the lips. Because she knew. She knew exactly what she'd done. The patrol car rolled away. Karen strutted back inside, victorious. And I carried Teddy in my arms, his head pressed weakly against my shoulder, his breath shallow, his fur damp with chemicals. Inside my house, I filled a basin with cool water, soaked a cloth, and wiped his face gently, over and over, whispering nonsense like, "You're okay, soldier. Just a scratch. Just a scratch." My vision blurred, my chest tight. Every whimper from him felt like a knife. By evening, he could open his eyes again, but they were red, raw, glassy. He wouldn't eat. Wouldn't move from the rug by the door. He just lay there, watching me, as if waiting for the next ambush. By evening, he could open his eyes again, but they were red, raw, glassy. He wouldn't eat. Wouldn't move from the rug by the door. He just lay there, watching me, as if waiting for the next ambush. Slipped under my door. No stamp. No envelope. Just a single sheet of paper, bold letters typed across the top. Notice of violation, immediate action required. It was from the HOA. Of course it was. Your animal poses a safety hazard to the community. You are hereby ordered to remove said animal from the property within 24 hours, or face daily fines, legal action, and possible foreclosure proceedings. 24 hours. That was the line in the sand. I sat at my kitchen table, the letter trembling in my hand, Teddy's labored breathing in the background. I'd faced mortar fire, IEDs, snipers hidden in windows. But this felt worse. Because this wasn't a battlefield you could fight with training or tactics. This was paperwork. Lies. Bureaucracy sharpened into a weapon. And yet, my instincts kicked in. Same as they always did when the walls closed in. Assess. Adapt. Act. If they wanted war, I'd give them war. But not on their terms. I leaned down, pressed my forehead to Teddy's, and whispered, "We've got 24 hours, partner. 24 hours to prove the truth. Let's show them what soldiers are made of." Sleep never came that night. Every creak of the house, every car door outside, every rustle of wind through the trees made me twitch like I was back in Fallujah. Teddy lay by the door, restless, his paws twitching like he was fighting battles in his dreams. And maybe he was. At 2 a.m., headlights swept across my blinds. A vehicle slowed in front of my house, idled for a moment, then crept on. HOA patrol. They called it a neighborhood watch. I called it intimidation. By dawn, my mission was clear. I needed evidence. Proof Karen was lying. Proof the HOA was overstepping. Something, anything, to stop that quarantine order from turning into a kill shot. But in this neighborhood, truth was hard to come by. I knocked on doors. Old Mrs. Latham, 3 houses down, cracked hers open a sliver. Her eyes darted like she was being watched. "I'm sorry, Jack," she whispered, "I can't get involved." Then the door shut. Mr. Peterson, across the street, wouldn't even answer. I saw his curtains move, though. Saw the glow of his phone as he took a picture of me on his porch. Reporting back to the Queen, no doubt. The neighborhood had chosen sides. And most of them weren't mine. By noon, I was running out of options. The clock ticked louder. 24 hours, shrinking fast. My chest felt tight, my thoughts scattered. For the first time in years, panic tried to creep in. And then came the knock. It wasn't Karen. Wasn't a cop. It was Marcus. He was 30-something, lean, sharp-eyed, always in a hoodie no matter the weather. He lived 2 streets over. We'd nodded at each other a few times at the gas station, but never talked much. Until now. He held up his phone. "I saw what happened yesterday. You're not crazy. Karen's been running this place like a cartel for years. I've been tracking her." I frowned. "Tracking her?" He grinned, just a little. "I do penetration testing for a living. Corporate cybersecurity. Basically, I get paid to break into systems. And guess what? The HOA isn't exactly Fort Knox." For the first time in days, hope flickered. Marcus spread his laptop out on my kitchen table, cables snaking like veins. He showed me email chains, internal memos, financial records. HOA fees funneled into administrative projects that didn't exist. Kickbacks from contractors. Selective fines targeting anyone who challenged Karen. But the smoking gun, the thing that made my stomach drop, was an email sent just 48 hours earlier. Subject line, Operation Remove K9. In it, Karen instructed board members to document any and all disturbances caused by the subject's animal and to escalate to animal control if necessary. Her words were cold, calculated. She even mentioned ensuring compliance through local law enforcement contacts. It wasn't about safety. It wasn't about rules. It was a hit job. I leaned back in my chair, fists clenched. "She planned this." Marcus nodded. "And she's counting on you folding under pressure." Not a chance. By late afternoon, another ally arrived. Marty, the ham radio guy. He was older, beard down to his chest, always tinkering with antennas in his yard. Most folks called him paranoid. I called him prepared. "I picked up their chatter," he said, stepping into my living room with a duffel bag full of radios. "HOA board members use cheap walkie-talkies. I've been listening. They're coordinating. Patrol routes, times, even talking about staging more incidents with your dog." He set up his gear like it was Vietnam all over again, dial spinning, static hissing. And then we heard it. "President Jordan says keep eyes on his house. If the dog so much as breathes wrong, we escalate." My stomach turned. Teddy wasn't safe in his own home. So I did what soldiers do best. I adapted. We turned my living room into a command post. Marcus ran digital recon, pulling files, tracing Karen's contacts. Marty handled comms, intercepting HOA transmissions. And me? I drew up a battle plan. The objective was simple: survive the hearing tomorrow with undeniable proof. Expose Karen before she could bury me in lies. But the hours dragged like sand through an hourglass. Teddy lay by my boots, still weak, his breath shallow but steady. Every time I looked at him, I reminded myself what was at stake. This wasn't about pride. This wasn't about property lines or HOA politics. This was about loyalty. About protecting the one soul who had never left my side. By midnight, we had enough to make a case. Emails, recordings, financial theft, even proof of Karen's coordinated smear campaign. It wasn't just HOA abuse, it was fraud. Corruption. Possibly criminal. Still, doubt gnawed at me. Would the system even care? Karen had friends in City Hall, friends in law enforcement. Truth didn't always win. I'd seen enough courts-martial to know that. But then Teddy stirred. Lifted his head. Looked me in the eyes. His tail thumped weakly against the floor, just once. And I knew. Win or lose, I had to fight. The next morning, I put on my best shirt, clipped Teddy's service harness around his chest, and walked into that administrative building like I was stepping onto a battlefield. Karen was already there, flanked by board members like generals in uniform. She wore a bright red suit, smug smile plastered across her face. She barely glanced at me before whispering something to the woman beside her, who laughed on cue. The clerk called us in. The hearing began. And I swore to myself, right then and there, this was the hill I'd die on. Karen wasted no time. She launched into a speech that would have made a politician jealous. She painted Teddy as a menace. Dangerous. This dog has terrorized children, she said, her voice dripping with false concern. Barking at all hours. Lunging at residents. I personally witnessed him assault me with aggression. She dabbed at imaginary tears with a tissue she'd clearly planted for effect. The board members beside her nodded solemnly, like priests at a funeral. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. When it was my turn, I stood. My knees wanted to shake, but I locked them in place. Years of briefing commanders in war zones kicked in. Calm voice. Direct eye contact. Facts first. This isn't about my dog, I began. This is about power. Abuse of it. Intimidation. And cover-ups. I motioned to Marcus, who wheeled in a projector and hooked up his laptop. The room darkened. The first slide appeared, Karen's email, subject line in bold, Operation Remove K9. Gasps rippled across the room. I didn't stop. I presented a timeline. Falsified fines. Illegal financial transfers. Emails where Karen openly mocked residents she fined. Recordings Marty captured of board members plotting to stage disturbances. Every slide hit like artillery. With each one, Karen's smugness cracked. First it was a twitch of the lip. Then the tapping of her pen. Then the flush rising in her cheeks. One of the officials raised his hand. Mrs. Jordan, did you authorize this email? She stammered. That's taken out of context. Did you or did you not, I pressed, instruct your board to fabricate incidents to justify removing a certified service dog? She glared at me like she could kill me with her eyes. But the panel wasn't looking at me anymore. They were looking at her. And they weren't impressed. For the finale, Marcus dropped the hammer, proof that HOA funds were funneled into a private account under Karen's name. Embezzlement. Fraud. A felony, plain and simple. Silence hung heavy after that. Finally, the lead official cleared his throat. Effective immediately, the HOA's complaint is dismissed. The animal quarantine order is rescinded. Furthermore, this board is recommending a full audit of the Lakewood Oaks Homeowners Association. Karen's face went white. For the first time since this war began, she looked small. Weak. Beaten. I didn't gloat. Didn't smile. Soldiers don't celebrate too early. But when I looked down at Teddy, sitting quietly by my side, his tail gave one soft wag. That was enough. The aftermath came fast. Within weeks, Karen resigned for personal reasons. The HOA scrambled, trying to save face, but the damage was done. Neighbors who once hid behind curtains now avoided her like plague. Marcus and I grabbed beers on my porch one evening, Teddy lying at our feet. He raised his bottle. To the dog that brought down a dictator. Marty chimed in over the radio, laughing like a madman. Long live Teddy. I couldn't help but smile. For the first time in years, I felt peace. But here's the truth I'll never forget, this wasn't just about an HOA. Or one corrupt president. This was about loyalty. About the lengths a man will go to protect the only companion who stood with him through fire and hell. Teddy wasn't just my dog. He was my brother in arms. My anchor. My reason to keep fighting when the world felt rigged against me. And when the system tried to take him away, I did what any soldier would do. I fought back. And I won.